Imagine if a small street or even a single room in your house could declare itself an independent country. It has its own flag, constitution, and leaders. But neither the United Nations nor any country in the world recognizes it. Today, we're diving into the strangest micronations, tiny states that challenge international laws and boldly say, "We exist." In the heart of Denmark's capital, Copenhagen, a neighborhood called Christiania declared independence from the state. They founded what became known as Free Christiania, home to about 859 residents, spread across just 34 hectares inside the city. But the real question is, how did this unusual place come to exist? And how did it transform from a military fortress into a so-called state within a state? The story begins in 1967. That year, the Danish army abandoned its barracks in Christiania. These barracks were part of a historic fortress, built to defend against Denmark's old enemy, Sweden, a country that had invaded multiple times throughout history. For centuries, Christiania's fortress stood as a symbol of resistance, but suddenly, it was left empty. At the same time, Copenhagen faced a severe housing crisis. Hundreds of poor families, the homeless, and anarchists with no place to go stormed the abandoned fortress. They occupied the barracks, turned them into homes, and just a few years later, in 1971, they shocked the nation by declaring Christiania an independent free town. The strangest part? The Danish government, weak and hesitant at the time, did not intervene. No taxes, no enforcement of the state's constitution. Instead, they allowed the residents to govern themselves. In Christiania's own Declaration of Independence, they wrote, "The aim of Christiania is to create a society that governs itself, where each individual feels responsible for the safety of the whole community. A society that is self-sufficient, proving that poverty and misery can be avoided." In this new society, there was no private property. Houses were granted as a right of use, or land was given, along with money to build your own home. Taxes worked in a bizarre way. You decided the percentage you paid based on your profits. It was a philosophy of power to the people, a radical experiment in communal living. But the absence of state authority came with a darker side. Christiania soon became a hub for drug trade, of every kind. It turned into a safe haven for gangs. And by 2005, violent turf wars left several people dead. The neighborhood also became a center for gay bars and clubs, and was linked to criminal activities and even acts of terrorism. Finally, the Danish government stepped in. They banned all hard drugs, while still tolerating soft drugs like marijuana and hashish, which remain openly sold to this day. Slowly, the government imposed more control over the area, yet Christiania still stands. A strange experiment in freedom and anarchy, a micronation within a nation, and one of the world's most fascinating and controversial social experiments. It is a small town in the Italian region of Liguria, near the French border, and in the early 1960s, a rather unusual figure emerged, a man named Giorgio Carbone. But here's the surprising part. Giorgio was not a politician, not a mayor, not even a public official. He was simply the president of the local Flower Growers Association. Yet, he was the one who started a campaign for independence. The story began when Carbone made a strange discovery. The name of the town did not appear in any Italian documents or treaties for over 1,000 years. For him and for the residents, this was shocking. They felt ignored, forgotten. left out of their own nation's history. So Giorgio raised his voice. He called for independence and dreamed of turning this forgotten town into a free state. But despite the excitement his idea created, neither he nor the people of the town ever took real steps toward freedom. And so, to this very day, the town remains part of Italy, yet its story lives on as one of the strangest independence movements in Europe's history, a movement born among flowers and dreams that never came true. Some might think these people are simply crazy or obsessed with politics and news channels. But in reality, most of them are just ordinary individuals with no real work or purpose. A person can become an emperor even under the flag of their own country, not with castles or armies, but by building an economic empire, global companies, and real influence that can even threaten nations. Micronations, on the other hand, hold no such power. They are fragile, exposed to threats and ridicule, where their so-called leaders feed on empty illusions, selling fantasies to a people that may not even exist. In the end, these stories are nothing more than a reflection of humanity's eternal desire to dream of power, even if that power is made of paper.